بدأ الإسلام غريبا وسيعود كما بدأ غريبا فطوبى للغرباء.
غرباء 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 غرباء.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا مزيدا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. In the past two Khawatir, we briefly went over the background pertaining to the narrations of the hadith an al-Ghuraba. Then after that, we mentioned some verses that support its meaning, and then a brief sentence by sentence explanation of the hadith from the statements of the ulama. Then we showed that the hadith is a prophecy, first of all. Second of all, that it's glad tiding. And we left off on the third point pertaining to Tuba being a praise, an encouragement, a tree in Jannah, or Jannah itself, that's reserved for strangers. Ibn Jarir and Ibn Hibban and Al-Tabari and Imam Ahmad reported that the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam was asked, قال رجل يا رسول الله وما طوبى قال شجرة في الجنة مسيرة 100 سنة. Tuba, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, is a tree in Jannah. شجرة في الجنة مسيرة 100 سنة ثياب أهل الجنة تخرج من أكمامها. It's a tree in Jannah. Travel around it is a distance of 100 years. The clothes of the people of Jannah are made from its calices, which is the outer casing of its flowers. Then there's a more authentic hadith that's very similar to this, on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu an in Sahih al-Bukhari, but it doesn't have the specific term Tuba in it. We also have the hadith of Utbata ibn Abd al-Sulami that is in many books of hadith, Musnad Ahmad, Ibn Hibban, Ibn Jarir, Al-Qurtubi, Ibn Abi Hatim, Al-Tabarani, Ibn Mardaway, Abu Nu'aym al-Asbahani, Ibn Abi Asim fi Sunnah, that a Bedouin came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked him questions, and the first one was about the hawd, the cistern. Then the Bedouin asked after that, قال الأعرابي فيها فاكهة, is there fruits in Jannah? The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said yes, and there's a tuba, there's a tree called tuba. قال نعم وفيها شجرة تدعى طوبى. The Bedouin asked, أي شجر أرضنا تشبه? What tree of this world does it resemble? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, ليست تشبه شيئا من شجر أرضك. He said it doesn't resemble any of the trees of this land or this world. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أتيت الشام؟ قال لا. Then the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam followed up with a question, have you ever visited the Sham? The man said no. He said, تشبه شجرة بالشام تدعى الجوزة تنبت على ساق واحد وينفرش أعلاها. It resembles a tree in a Sham called al-Jawza, which is the walnut tree. تنبت على ساق واحد وينفرش أعلاها. It grows on one trunk, then spreads its branches higher up. Then the Bedouin asked, how mighty, how big is it? ما عظم أصلها, how big is its trunk? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لو ارتحلت جذعة من إبل أهلك ما أحاطت بأصلها حتى تنكسر ترقوتها هرما. If one of the camels of you that you have or your people have was to go around it, it wouldn't complete one circle or circuit around it before its neck was broken of old age or exhaustion. Then he asked about the grapes of Jannah. The point being is looking forward for Tuba after knowing it brings comfort to the strangers that are agonizing and forsaken and lonely. It penetrates tranquility deep into the heart of those struggling with the whispers of the nafs during that trial. It boosts the iman and inspires one to bear being a stranger. And at the same time, it removes any and all sorrow and grief and heartache and pain those holding on the ember of haqq may feel. They know they pay a hefty price in this vanishing dunya only to attain the ultimate prize of Tuba and an immense eternal reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in an everlasting life. The hadith obliterates the criterion, the rebuttal, the proof the ignorant masses and their evil leaders bring when they determine and judge the evil they're on by pointing to the haqq as being strange and its adherents as being very few. The hadith leaves no room or wait for those whose principle and trend and custom in judging is to go with the majority in what the flow are on. The hadith flips the scale on those deluded by the majority when judging and determining the correctness and truthfulness of who's on the haqq and who's on the batil. The argument they make, all those people, all those shuyukh don't know, but you know, that all, when you're on the haqq, becomes feeble next to this hadith. The mercy to mankind, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, wanted you to envision the light at the end of the tunnel because he knows firsthand the pain and struggle strangers after him will endure. And a final note on this hadith, before we dwell deeper into the topic, especially for the students of ilm, we emphasize that the hadith بدأ الإسلام غريبا وسيعود كما بدأ غريبا فطوبى للغرباء is solidly authentic, with many solidly authentic narrations in the exact same wording and more so in similar wordings. So that narration is authentic. And there's also a narration in Sahih Muslim وهو, with the addition وهو يأرز بين المسجدين كما تأرز الحية في جحرها. And Islam would revert back to being strange again, and it would recede between the two masjids just like a serpent crawls back into its hole. That hadith is in Sahih Muslim, of course authentic. Then there's other narrations that define who the strangers are. In an unpublished Arabic book that I wrote in my late teens before the internet and computer age, and I had some ulama of hadith review it, and among them, and the first one who reviewed it for me was Shaykh Ahmad al-Ansari, who corrected some points and he advised me on some others. It was a detailed study on the various narrations of this hadith, this particular hadith. What I did was I went through all the various narrations, and the conclusion is that all the narrations with those additions describing the strangers, all those have issues with their authenticity. And I say it very summarized, otherwise I would go through it because these are summarized talks. And we're saying the ones with additions that describe the strangers. For example, when the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked about the strangers in hadith Abi al-Ahwas an Abdullah, قال قيل ومن الغرباء قال النزاع من القبائل. Describing strangers, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, they are those who depart from the tribes. He said strangers are the ones who left their families and tribes. What it means is that you see from every family, every tribe, every background, every family, one or two who come to the haqq. So that's one narration. In another narration, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, الَّذِينَ يُصْلِحُونَ عِنْدَ فَسَادِ النَّاسِ. They are the ones who reform people when they become evil and corrupt and astray. In another narration, فَطُوبَى لِلْغُرَبَاءِ وَهُمُ الَّذِينَ يُصْلِحُونَ مَا أَفْسَدَ النَّاسِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مِنْ سُنَّتِي. In Sunan al-Tirmidhi, that Tuba is for the ones, the few, who correct and set right the corruption caused in my sunnah by the people after my death. In Tabarani, another narration, الذين يصلحون إذا فسد الناس ولا يمارون في دين الله ولا يكفرون أحدا من أهل التوحيد بذنب. In Musnad Ahmad, in Al-Bayhaqi, in Al-Tabarani, another narration, ناس صالحون قليل في ناس سوء كثير. Another one, الذين يزيدون إذا نقص الناس. Another one, الذين يحيون سنتي ويعلمون عباد الله. Those who revive my sunnah and teach it to the servants of Allah. Another one, المتمسك يومئذ بسنتي كالقابض على الجمر. Then the addition in this one was that those who hold on my sunnah are like the ones holding on a burning ember. The most authentic of those is the first two that I mentioned, النزاع من القبائل, and then الذين يصلحون عند فساد الناس. So let me mention here another benefit, since we're at this point. It pertains to the science of the hadith. When saying those two are the most authentic pertaining to a group of ahadith in the context that I mentioned, that among muhaddithin doesn't necessarily mean that it's authentic. It means it's the strongest of the weak hadith. Meaning they are the least weakest among the weak hadith, as An-Nawawi rahimahullah defined that specific statement. So we're not disputing here the meanings of those narrations, but the thing about it is the chains have issues with them. That's why I didn't go over every single one of them, otherwise I would have. So ya muwahhid and ya muwahhida, Let me leave you with that. There was once upon a time Amr ibn Hisham and Abd al-Uzza, who ruled with an iron fist and shouted kufr in the holiest of holies, in and surrounding the Kaaba and all around Mecca, hurling every type of insult and slander and accusation and harm against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, savagely and aggressively flexing their muscle and power on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the early strangers of Islam. All while Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was occupied in Dar al-Arqam teaching a few people in secrecy. You don't recognize Amr ibn Hisham or Abd al-Uzza because they were disgraced and rebranded as Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab, the father of ignorance and the father of flames. Both met their demise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as reeking cadavers, one in the Qalib of Badr and the other in his own house, abandoned, unburied, in humiliation 4 days. And the stranger Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the man whose blessed neck they attempted to set their feet on, the blessed back they put the intestines of a camel on, the one they physically and verbally bullied and mocked in every conceivable way, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his message were raised high in esteem, high in fame, dignified in remembrance, in reputation, and those vanguard strangers around him became the leaders of the globe. Islam began strange and it will return strange. So tuba is for the strangers. The hadith with so many narrations, its meaning deeply rooted in the Quran, and a topic so essential that the ulama devoted chapters or at times booklets and even books to that topic. صفة الغربة للآجري، كشف الكربة في وصف حال أهل الغربة للحافظ ابن رجب الحنبلي، بيان غربة أهل الإسلام لعلي ابن ميمون. More contemporary is the book غربة الإسلام for Shaykh Hamud al-Tuwaijri, among many others. And that's why we'll be spending more time, insha'Allah, around the meaning of the Ghuraba. جزاكم الله خير. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.